Well, we knew it already, but now we have the figure. Labor's renewables-only fantasy is making us poorer. That's according to the latest data from the Energy Institute. It's cost this country $29 billion in the last decade. And in that same time period, China has increased their emissions by 87 times the amount we reduced ours by. Joining me now is the Australian's environment editor, Lloyd. Graham, I mean, we're literally going broken backwards under this fantasy pipe dream.
Yes, well, good evening to Danica. And the sobering thing is, large as that number is, that is only a tiny fraction of what is going to be required to deliver on what is being promised. If there's a criticism that can be made of the whole approach, regardless of what one's view may be of tackling climate change or anything else, it's the lack of a real plan at the outset and the lack of any cost-benefit analysis that went with it. So what we're seeing now, the billions of dollars are racking up, and the returns, they're still difficult to find.
And as I said there, China's increased their emissions by 87 times the amount we reduced ours by. What is the point of global climate targets?
Well, this is the other thing. I mean, I've travelled to a lot of the so-called COP meetings where the issues are thrashed out. And at the very core of those meetings is this ethic that there must be different treatment for developing and developed countries. China is still regarded as a developing country, and therefore it has no obligation to cut its carbon dioxide emissions. It's saying they will peak sometime in the future, but the size of their economy and emissions profile is so great that anything that's done in Australia is immediately swallowed up. It's always been the case, and it's really underpinned the argument that whatever actions Australia takes is going to be next to meaningless in the global scale of emissions. It's really a sort of demonstration of good faith to the rest of the global community. But in terms of solving the problem, we're a bystander.
Yeah, clearly. And meanwhile, we're still peddling this net zero fantasy and keeping on with the Paris climate targets is just ridiculous. Now, look, I want to ask you about mining and metals company Rio Tinto. It's backed a Gillard-style price on carbon, arguing it's the most effective way to coax the private sector into driving down emissions. Graham, you know, the Gillard price on carbon was just, so popular last time, but what's Rio Tinto's goal here, do you think?
Well, Rio Tinto is playing the corporate game. It's setting targets and saying, look, it wants to reduce emissions and be a good corporate citizen. But the best way to do that, they say, is for the government to collect money off everybody and redistribute it to companies, including Rio, so they can work with technologies and other things to reduce their emissions. So they're really talking out of a position of great self-interest, both in terms of the presentation they make to the world, but also their financial pocket.
Now, I've got to ask you about this green project. Another one's been axed after offshore wind developer Blue Flow abandoned its plans for one of Victoria's most advanced offshore wind projects. It's failed to secure a buyer. Graham, I don't know about you, but I have lost count at the amount of projects that have been delayed or cancelled in recent months.
Yeah, well, certainly, we're trying to keep count, but it's across the board now. It's Snowy 2.0, it's onshore wind projects, and particularly offshore projects that are finding it difficult to get off the ground. And probably the most telling fact in the story of this one in Victoria is that they put it up for sale and they got no bids. That gives a pretty good indication as to how difficult the offshore wind industry is going to be and the experience that they're having elsewhere. This is an international company. It thought it would come in and expand into Australia. It's now pulling out of Australia and it's reducing its operations overseas. And that's pretty much the story of offshore wind. So going back to the original point, what's the plan? How much is it going to cost? And what are we going to get?
Yeah, and meanwhile, still no plans to keep the lights on in this country as we keep trying to phase out coal so quickly. Lloyd, good to catch up. Thanks very much for joining me on the show this evening.